Hang on a second. Yeah, dinosaurs! Dinosaurs! Okay, come here. Come here. Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. If you're new here, I'm Mercury. And, yeah, I'm a dinosaur today. Today, I am doing my impersonation of a T-Rex for your amusement. And I'm doing this for a reason. I just finished reading Dragon Teeth, which is a Michael Crichton book about dinosaur fossils. So I want to do a book review, but I just, I had to have a bit of humor here. So give me a minute. Let me take off my dinosaur suit because it's kind of loud and crinkly. So give me 1 second here. Okay. It's the little things in life, and something like a dinosaur suit just brought me a bit of joy for this moment. So, I just figured I would share the joy. But Dragon Teeth by Michael Crichton. Let's talk about it. So, this is Michael Crichton's final novel. I read Jurassic Park way back when. So, Jurassic Park came out 1993? Because I remember there was a whole big thing about it being like a PG-13 movie. And do we even have movie ratings anymore? I haven't been paying attention, but at the time, that was it was a big deal because it was more than, a PG rating, it was too violent for kids, but it was not quite the level of an R rating. And I remember it being a big deal because a lot of kids wanted to see this movie about dinosaurs. So I read Jurassic Park way, 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 way long ago. Then after that, I went to read, I feel like it was The Andromeda Strain. And I read that, but this is 20 years ago. And I don't really remember it. It's probably a book I should revisit. But I have not read Michael Crichton since, and I don't know why, because I've enjoyed the books that I've read by Michael Crichton. And because I haven't really been keeping up to date, I didn't realize that we lost him. I think I read in 2008. Let me check. Yes, confirmed, 2008. So I didn't realize. So this was actually a book that his wife found the manuscript for, and she worked with the publisher to get it put out there. So I found that very interesting that this is sort of I don't want to say it's the last thing he worked on, but it's the last of his books to be published that we are aware of. From my understanding of the timeline of things. I could be mistaken. I could be mistaken. I don't want to say 100% certainty here, but that's just my understanding. But as far as the book itself, this was a very interesting and exciting tale. This took me on a journey I wasn't expecting. I was expecting a journey focused on the bones and the fossils and the dinosaurs. That's not what happened. The bones and the fossils and the dinosaurs were the mechanism for making everything else happen. They were the central item, object, whatever you want to, call it, whatever descriptive you want to use. They were the catalyst for all of the other adventures that happened. This novel, it's historical fiction, meaning it takes place in a time period in the past, so late 1800s, mid to late 1800s. And there are actual historical figures that are in this book. However, it is fictionalized. It is not true. It is not based on the facts of how things played out. It just takes historical figures and creates a story for them. So this was based on, I forget if it was the Bone Wars, the Bone Race, but basically the premise behind this is that until the Transcontinental Railroad was completed, it was very difficult for fossil hunters, for paleontologists, to really go out and excavate the bones because they had no way to transport them until that railroad existed. And prior to that time, for a variety of reasons, religion being one of them, dinosaur bones were dismissed. You know, Darwinism versus creationism was like a very hot topic at that moment in time. And, you know, there was a lot of sort of like denial of these being like as old as they were, from time periods that they were, from creatures as big as they were. And it was through the dedication of the paleontologists that kept pursuing the science that we know what we know today about dinosaurs. So the idea of this story is you are following this young scholar who, for the wrong reasons, ended up going on the right journey for himself. You know, from the East Coast, from the Pennsylvania area, out west. And remember, this is also like during gold rush time, right? So there's a lot of people going out west to find their fortune and glory. And he went out there not for that reason and went in search of these dinosaur bones. And he got caught in the middle of a rivalry between two paleontologists. My understanding is these are real paleontologists that really did have a rivalry. So it was two real paleontologists, Professor Marsh and Professor Cope. And he starts out with one and ends up with another, and, you know, chaos and adventure ensue. And they end up finding these dinosaur bones in the side of like, I don't know if it was a mountain face or a cliff face, but it was like sheer, and they were like pulling the bones out. And they were like the teeth of what he named like a brontosaurus, I believe, which I know we know now doesn't exist, but, you know, remember point in time, right? So they were like excavating these teeth, and then it was like all exciting, right? And those are the dragon teeth. So it's this big adventure about going out west, finding dinosaur bones and keeping them safe and getting them home, right? That is sort of like the premise of the story. I do say there's a bit of a trigger warning. This book was written as historical fiction. Our history is cruel. Our history is unkind. And our history really does not do Native American people justice. And because this is written as historical fiction and set in a certain point in time from a certain point of view, it uses very stigmatizing language, language that we would now in today's day and age consider wholly inappropriate, but based on point and time and from the historical lens this book is being written in, those were the choices that were made. So I do want to kind of put that out there as you know, a trigger warning and for some context if you do choose to read this novel, because that is part of it, and it is a big part of it. So I'm okay reading novels like this as long as I'm using a critical thinking lens while I'm reading them, right? Like, I understand that history was not pretty, that we messed up a lot of stuff along the way. And I'm also a believer that we should not erase history. Because if we say, like, don't read books that you know, use certain language or depict certain people in a certain type of way, we won't understand what happened. We will forget what happened, and we cannot forget what happened. We need to learn from our past, because those that do not learn from their past are doomed to repeat it. So that is why I say, you know, I'll put a trigger warning, but I will not like be bashing the book because of that, because that is the time frame it is set in, and this is a learning moment for us, right? Like, we can do better than we were doing 100 years ago. No, 150 years ago now. We have to do better. So anytime I do a book review that's using that type of language or imagery or anything along those lines, that is the lens that I am viewing it through, is a critical thinking lens of not forgetting history so that we don't repeat history. So that being said, back to the point of this, back to the main focus of the story, which again, you know, it's like it's a wild, wild west adventure, right? And I mentioned like it's historical fiction. They even draw in some classic Western type of characters, like Wyatt Earp. He turned up. He did. So when I say historical fiction, it's taking like real people that really existed, giving them a whole new narrative, but in the context of who they were, right? Like enough that like you want to go and like start doing Google searches like, did this actually happen or is this not true? Like, I'm not sure. And you start looking it up, like, did Wyatt Earp help with X, Y, and Z? No, he didn't. Like that is all fiction. So it's interesting. Historical fiction is interesting. I don't read a lot of historical fiction, but the few that I've read, I've actually really, really enjoyed. I can't remember the title of the other book that I read, but there was another historical fiction I read that was sort of like about Tesla and Alexander Graham Bell and the light, the electric light. I can't remember what it was called. I read it 2 or 3 years ago, but I really enjoyed that one. But yeah, if I think of the name, I'll put it in the description, but I can't remember it at this moment in time. But yeah, overall, Dragon Teeth, entertaining read. It was a fun adventure that the main character kind of, it was definitely an adventure that the main character went on, and going along on that journey with him. And like those moments when he's in danger, you feel that danger. Those moments when he's like excited, you feel that excitement. So it's very well written in conveying the emotion of the main character. Yeah, it's interesting because I don't tend to like read or romanticize like Wild Wild West type of stories, but this one was good. This one was a good read. So, and I got through it really fast. I got through this in about two and a half weeks. I also have a little bit of added pressure to get through books on an expedited timeline because my library, like I have books on hold, and I'm trying to figure out like how many pages can I read before this hold is available, because if I pass up on the hold, I have to like, it's hard to space it out. It's hard to figure out when you'll get it back again. And I don't want to miss the date that it becomes available to me. And then I have to read it in that certain period of time. So I have a book on hold, and it's anticipated to be ready for me in 2 weeks. So I thought reading Dragon Teeth was going to get me to when the hold was, but I finished it too fast. I got through it too quickly. So now I'm like looking for a shorter novel to sort of like fill in this 2-week gap, something I think I can get through in 2 weeks. Worst case scenario is I start something and then I have to pause and then read the book that was on hold and then go back to the other book. That is like worst case scenario. I don't think that's gonna happen. I sorted my Goodreads list by page count, so I think I'll be okay. I have a low page count book that I'm gonna throw into the mix here, and we'll see what happens. Yeah. So I guess with that I am done for the day. I'll see you all real soon, and until then, stay inspired. Bye everyone. Take care.